Hi, this is John, and it's time for another Drunk Screencast. So, today we are going to talk about try, which is provided by Rails or Active Support specifically. So we're going to take a switch from Ember and talk about Ruby for a little bit. So if you've never used try, it is useful if you're not sure if you set an instance variable or not. For example, in your controller, you're like, user.find1.posts.last or something. So if you're not sure that the user is a post, you could be assigning that to the obviously named instance variable bananas. So if bananas could be nil and could not be, and you're dealing with that later in your controller or in your view, you might want to try to call a method on it. So if it is nil, it will just return nil, and if it's not nil, it will call that method on the receiver. So let's see what that looks like. Here our bananas instance variable is nil, and so trying to call apples on it will just return nil, and trying to call upcase on a string will actually upcase that string. So let's run that really fast and see what we get. So as promised, we get nil, and then we get ASDF capitalized or upcased. So great. So let's take a moment and look at how that has changed from Rails 3 to Rails 4, and then we'll talk about a change that has happened in Rails 5. So in Rails 3, or active support, I guess, let's place blame where blame is due, is monkey patching object. So we have try defined on object, which is essentially just passing along whatever we call to the object. But then we also monkey patch nil class to define try, so that if we try to call a method on nil, we just get nil back. So that's nice and simple. That is exactly the behavior we saw here. So let's move on to Rails 4. And in Rails 4, we are still only monkey patching object and nil class, but we now have try and try bang. So in try, we're adding this respond to check, and then try bang retains the behavior that some of us were used to from Rails 3. So if we called, back in the day, if we said stf.try bananas, we would get a no method error because the strings don't define a method called bananas. So this instance of a string doesn't respond to the method bananas. In the new world, in Rails 4, which is what we're running here, we will get nil. If we want to try really hard to call a method, then we can call try bang, and that will give us a no method error, which is the same behavior from Rails 3. If, however, we call try bang on nil, then we still just get nil. No matter how hard you yell at nil, you can try whatever you want, and it is fine with it. So one thing worth noting with the behavior of both Rails 3 and Rails 4 is that we're only monkey patching object and nil class. So that means things that inherit from basic object don't get try defined on them. So this has usually come up for me with simple delegator instances, because delegator inherits directly from basic object. So this has come up mostly with my use of this gem called frosting, which I may or may not have written a lot of, which makes making presenters easy in Rails, and I recommend using it because it's pretty fucking awesome. So if we go back to Rails 4 land, which is what we're running our example code in, we see again that we're only monkey patching object and no class. So if we define ourselves, we'll stick with bananas. So we're defining a class that's a subclass of simple delegator, and let's define upcase. Say bananas for life. Okay, so then if we create an instance of bananas with, I don't know, a string and call upcase on it, we will of course get bananas for life because that's what we've told it to do. But if we create a new instance of bananas, or simple delegator directly even, and then try to call a method on it. So simple delegator inherits from delegator, which inherits from basic object, which does not have try defined on it. So it will delegate try to the wrapped object, which in this case is the string apples. And so now we get apples upcased. So this is unexpected for a lot of people, and this was used as hacks for a lot of people to bypass presenters intentionally, which is going to bite them in the ass when they upgrade to Rails 5. Because if we go look at Rails 5, or master Rails, so now they've extracted the try behavior into this tryable module, and now it's included in object as before, and we're continuing try and try bang. But it's also included in delegator. So this will mean that when you call try off of your delegator, simple delegator instance, it will actually still be talking to the delegator instance if it is not nil. And so that seems great to me. That is going to make the behavior far more predictable, and way to go. All right, that's all I got. Goodbye.